Chapter 1621. Not Acknowledged Royal Ancient God. No wonder he's so remarkable. Another royal ancient god has been born in the Gu King City. Many ancient gods on the martial arts training ground looked at Jian Wushuang with respect. The ancient god clan had always revered those with abilities and specific bloodlines. Under normal circumstances, a gold-armored ancient god was considered the highest level of ancient god bloodline. As for a royal ancient god, there were not many of them in a great king city. If they were to grow up in the future, they could definitely become the king of a faction. Hence, the birth of every new royal ancient god would be a joyous occasion within the king city. As such, the ancient gods present were also delighted. Except King Jiu Yi, whose face did not have any slightest bit of happiness. Instead, his face was ice cold. He was a 7-star royal ancient god. Hence, he was a super expert who was strong enough to compete with the almighties of the human beings. While other ancient gods could only tell that Jian Wushuang had the bloodline of a royal ancient god, King Jiu Yi could tell that Jian Wushuang also possessed the bloodline of a human being. In other words, Jian Wushuang possessed a bloodline mixed between ancient gods and human beings. I did not expect someone among the people with a mixed bloodline of ancient gods and human beings to actually be able to awaken a royal ancient god bloodline. King Jiu Yi was staring at Jian Wushuang. After hearing what was said, the ancient gods present were shocked. Mixed bloodline? Jiu Jian possesses a mixed bloodline? Moreover, it's a mixed bloodline with human beings? A mixed bloodline has actually become a royal ancient god. The ancient gods present, including the golden-haired youth, started to change the way they looked at Jian Wushuang. Jiu Jian, right? King Jiu Yi looked down at Jian Wushuang and his eyes were cold. You can go back now. Go back. Then the ancient god palace. Jian Wushuang frowned. HMPH, a mixed bloodline like you wishes to go into the ancient god palace? King Jiu Yi gave a cold hum. The eyes of the surrounding ancient gods were filled with coldness as well. As expected, the king of venomous worms sighed. After so many years, the rules of the ancient god palace have not changed at all. King of venomous worms. What is going on? Jian Wushuang questioned. Jian Wushuang, I told you before that the ancient god clan reveres the bloodline. Moreover, the purer the bloodline, the more respected they are. If you were a pure royal ancient god, not to mention joining the ancient god palace, it would also be easy for you to build a lineage that belonged to you. However, it's a pity. Not only do you possess the royal ancient god bloodline, you are also a human being. Hence, you are a mixed bloodline between ancient gods and human beings. Within the ancient god clan, this kind of bloodline is not acknowledged. The king of venomous worms said. Not acknowledged? Jian Wushuang was stunned. That's right. It does not matter whether it is a mixed bloodline between ancient gods and human beings or a mixed bloodline between ancient gods and other clans. As long as the bloodline is not pure, and thus incomplete, the person will not be recognized by the ancient god clan. Moreover, the ancient god palace has had a rule since a long time ago saying that mixed bloodlines will not be able to enter the ancient god palace. The king of venomous worms continued speaking. As I left the lineage of ancient gods for too long, I do not know whether the rules of the ancient god palace have changed. Hence, I decided to let you participate in the ancient god palace's assessment. If the rules have changed, that would be best, as you would be able to enter the ancient god palace openly to cultivate the 3 secret skills and 4 unique skills. However, if the rules have not changed, you can also fake your way in. After all, it is impossible for a normal ancient god to notice your mixed bloodline except for 7-star ancient gods and above. Moreover, there are also very few 7-star ancient gods in the Gu King City, and under normal circumstances, they should not be concerned with the matters in the ancient god palace. Therefore, I decided to let you sneak into the ancient god palace to get your hands on the secret skills and unique skills. After getting your hands on these skills, we can leave immediately and those 7-star ancient gods might not take notice at all. Even if they were to realize it, they could only give you some punishment at best and you would just have to take it. That is what I thought. However, who would expect you to be discovered by a 7-star ancient god even before sneaking into the ancient god palace? Is that so? Jian Wushuang was surprised. Then we can only leave now, right? Leave? Since you have passed the assessment, how can we leave so easily? The king of venomous worms said with a cold voice. Since we are unable to enter the ancient god palace to cultivate those unique skills and secret skills by normal means, we can only do it the hard way.
The hard way? How can we do it the hard way? Jian Wushuang questioned.
It should be known that the person in front of him was a 7-star ancient god. Moreover, the Gu King city was filled with numerous experts. Hence, what could a 5-star ancient god like him do? Jian Wushuang, tell King Gu Yi that you wish to challenge the Star Moon Tower, the king of venomous worms said.
Moon Star Tower? What is that?
Jian Wushuang was confused. Don't ask so many questions. Just follow what I have said, the king of venomous worms said.
All right.
Jian Wushuang did not hesitate. He raised his head at once and looked toward King Gu Yi, who was in front of him. He then said, "My lord, I wish to challenge the Star Moon Tower." As soon as the words left his mouth, the void of the martial arts training ground froze instantly. All the ancient gods present opened their eyes wide and looked at Jian Wushuang. Their eyes seemed as though they had heard something impressive. Even King Gu Yi revealed a shocked expression. "What did you just say?" King Gu Yi stared at Jian Wushuang. "I said that I wanted to challenge the Star Moon Tower," Jian Wushuang repeated himself. Haha, King Gu Yi laughed loudly straight away. "Little kid, you really dare to say anything. For many years, no one has had the courage to challenge the Star Moon Tower. Yet, you wish to challenge it? Do you know how the word death is spelt? Looking at the fact that you were able to awaken the royal bloodline, I would advise you to leave quickly, if not." "I have already made up my mind," Jian Wushuang said coldly. King Gu Yi squinted his eyes slightly and looked at Jian Wushuang deeply. "Great, since you wish to die, I shall grant you your wish. The Star Moon Tower will be open in 10 days. If you have the ability, go ahead and challenge it." After his speech, King Gu Yi swung his robe sleeves and left. As for those ancient gods present, all of them were looking at Jian Wushuang with mixed feelings. Some of them were shocked, some of them revered him, some of them sneered at him, and some of them looked at him as if he were an idiot.
Gu Jian.
The golden-haired youth walked in front of Jian Wushuang and he was filled with mixed feelings. "Although you are a mixed bloodline who is unable to be recognized by the ancient god clan, I, Gu Jian, admire your courage and resolve to challenge the Star Moon Tower. I hope that you are still able to remain alive after 10 days. After his speech, Gu Jian left as well. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath. He ignored the unusual gazes of the people present and left. At the same time, he was also questioning the king of venomous worms about the details of the Star Moon Tower. He merely took the initiative to say that he wanted to challenge the Star Moon Tower and that he was extremely sure of it. However, in actual fact, he himself was unsure of what exactly the Star Moon Tower was. Chapter 1622. Star Moon Tower. Tell me what Star Moon Tower exactly is. Why do so many ancient gods think that I am looking for trouble for myself? Jian Wushuang asked King of Venomous Worms. Well, they are right. This Star Moon Tower is a dangerous place, King of Venomous Worms said. Star Moon Tower, as well as Ancient God Palace, was the legacy of the Ancient God Emperor. There has been a rule since a long time ago. Ancient gods without pure blood cannot enter the Ancient God Palace, with only one exception. This Star Moon Tower is the exception. There are 7 layers in it, of which the first 4 layers represent the 4 great unique skills, and the last 3 layers represent the 3 secret skills. Those ancient gods without pure blood can enter the Ancient God Palace by passing the test in the Star Moon Tower. You can only get the 4 great unique skills after you finish the 4th layer of the tower. If you pass all 7 layers, you will get both the 4 great unique skills and the 3 secret skills. Jian Wushuang smiled. But the Star Moon Tower test is not easy to pass, right? You are right. You have to get through the first 4 floors without stopping, after which you can survive and have a rest. Then you can get the 4 great unique skills. As for the last 3 layers at the back, it is up to you whether to go or not and how to finish it. As far as I know, a lot of ancient gods have tried to go to the tower, but only one passed through the first 4 layers and survived. And that person just passed the first 4 layers and had no guts to go to the 5th floor. King of Venomous Worms said. Only one person survived? Jian Wushuang said. Why didn't you say so before? If I said it earlier, would you be so determined to say you are going? King of Venomous Worms smiled. Do not worry, I have confidence in you because you are different. You are an inverse cultivator. There has never been an inverse cultivator to go through the Star Moon Tower. I think you can make it. Just do your best. You will definitely impress everyone. King of Venomous Worms was obviously confident in Jian Wushuang. I hope. King of Venomous Worms shrugged. Jian Wushuang had no choice but to have a try. Someone wants to enter the Star Moon Tower. This news caused a heated discussion among all the ancient gods. The Star Moon Tower was a nightmare to them. After all, the journey in the tower was risky and had a high mortality rate. For 100,000 years, the Star Moon Tower had not been opened. Ancient gods would rather give up learning than risk their lives. Now, the Star Moon Tower had opened once again. You're listening to this story from PandaAudioBooks. If you enjoy these stories and would like to support my work, feel free to buy me a coffee via PayPal. Link in the description below. 10 days later, many ancient gods had decided to watch Jian Wushuang's journey. In the large space in the city, an altar was suspended, and a dozen figures were sitting there, with 2 of them sitting in the center. One of these 2 people was Jiyu King. The other person was also a 7-star ancient god. They are Jiyu King and Jiyu Mai. They have both come in person? Yes. After all, the Star Moon Tower has not been opened for more than 100,000 years. It is rare to open it once. They should be present. There was a lot of discussion. So many people. Jian Wushuang said when he felt the crowd with his soul power. At this moment, Jiyu King in the altar waved his hands. With a rumbling sound, an old, dark tower emerged. This dark tower quickly zoomed and rose to a high altitude. This is Star Moon Tower? Jian Wushuang exclaimed. The tower was incomparably grand and awesome. On the altar, in addition to Jiyu King and Go Mai, there were more than 10 6-star ancient gods. At that moment, they were also talking and laughing. After 110,000 years, Star Moon Tower has finally opened again. Yes. After all, it is so dangerous. I remember that 110,000 years ago, when the Star Moon Tower was open, a little guy called Jiyu went to the Star Moon Tower. He was not bad. But unfortunately he died on the 3rd layer. I don't know if the little guy today can be better than Jiyu. Even if he's better, in the end, he will die. Those 6-star ancient gods knew well the danger of the Star Moon Tower, so they didn't think Jian Wushuang could survive. They just hoped that he could perform better and show them some fun. Jiyu Jian, let's get started. The low voice of Jiyu King was like thunder, and suddenly it sounded throughout the heavens. Suddenly, the entire space was immediately quiet. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath, looked up at the altar, then stepped forward to the tower. All eyes were on Jian Wushuang. Chapter 1623. Challenge. He is the hothead who feels that he has a long life ahead of him. A 5-star ancient god challenging the Star Moon Tower. He is really courting death. I have heard that Jiyu Jian is a mixed bloodline between ancient gods and human beings. Moreover, his ancient god bloodline seems to be of the royal class. A mixed bloodline has become a royal ancient god. So what if he's a royal ancient god? He is merely a mixed bloodline who is unrecognized. Moreover, he's about to die today. Countless eyes were staring at Jian Wushuang. Most of them were filled with ridicule and pity. Jian Wushuang, ignore them and go straight to the Star Moon Tower, the King of Venomous Worms said. I know. Jian Wushuang giggled. He had already ignored the gazes of the surrounding ancient gods a long time ago. Jian Wushuang's body turned vague and he had already entered the pitch-black ancient tower which was floating high up in the sky. Atop the sacrificial altar. Scorpion, the first level of the Star Moon Tower is guarded by your ancient god shadow, right? You have to hold back slightly. If not, it will be uninteresting if it ends at the first level. That's right. Don't kill that little kid straight away. Some 6-star ancient gods laughed. Everything is according to the rules. I will use the abilities that I am supposed to use, the apathetic old man known as Scorpion said calmly. I shall stop talking now. It's about to begin. After talking, The apathetic old man closed his eyes. First level of the Star Moon Tower. It was a giant wasteland with a scorching sun in the sky. As soon as Jian Wushuang appeared in the wasteland, he noticed the giant shadow in front of him right away. The giant shadow was an ancient god. Moreover, it was a 6-star ancient god. However, the aura on his body was not very strong. Ha ha! This Star Moon Tower is still the same as before. As the king of venomous worms looked at the 6-star ancient god, he laughed loudly at once. King of venomous worms. What's going on? Jian Wushuang was puzzled. Jian Wushuang, I said before that you do not need to be too worried about the Star Moon Tower. To a normal person, the Star Moon Tower is indeed extremely difficult. However, to an inverse cultivator like you, it is not considered too difficult. Take the first level as an example. As you are only a universe god and hence a 5-star ancient god, the guard who you meet on the first level will only possess the fighting capabilities of a normal 6-star ancient god, and this is equivalent to that of a normal void real god of the human beings. You only need to kill him and you will be able to clear the first level. The king of venomous worms laughed. A normal void real god? Jian Wushuang's eyes moved. Can I use the techniques of a human cultivator in here? Of course. You can use any techniques you want. The king of venomous worms laughed. That's all I needed to know. Jian Wushuang grinned. At that very moment, the 6-star ancient god was already looking at Jian Wushuang and his loud voice resounded. You are really courageous to challenge the Star Moon Tower. However, it's a pity that having too much courage sometimes means that you are ignorant. Thus, you will have to pay a price for your own ignorance. Let's begin. The 6-star ancient god had already taken out his purple giant hammer. Ignorant? Jian Wushuang smiled and sword essence rose from body. At the next moment, Jian Wushuang moved. Swish! A glittering light swept past the void with rays of sword light appearing in the process in a flash. Jian Wushuang had already appeared behind the 6-star ancient god and he was already putting the Blood Mountain sword into his scabbard. I wonder, who is the ignorant one? Jian Wushuang's laughter resounded across the wasteland. The 6-star ancient god who was holding the purple giant hammer had already opened his eyes wide and his face was filled with shock. He had already done ample preparations and had even taken his weapon out. However, from the start to the end, he did not even get a chance to swing the purple hammer that he had taken out and his body had already started to dissipate. Outside the Star Moon Tower, atop the sacrificial altar, the two 7-star ancient gods King Jiyu Yi and Jiyu Mai, as well as tens of top 6-star ancient gods were sitting down with interest and having a conversation. All of a sudden, the apathetic old man known as Scorpion opened his eyes and his eyes were filled with astonishment. The surrounding 6-star ancient gods also noticed the actions of the apathetic old man and they looked over immediately. Scorpion, what happened? It's over so quickly? Isn't that little kid too weak? Some 6-star ancient gods were still talking. However, the apathetic man's expression turned grave and he spoke immediately. Everyone, the little kid has already cleared the first level. What? The ancient gods atop the sacrificial altar were all stunned. He did it in only an instant? How can he be so fast? Scorpion, could it be that you really showed mercy and let that little kid clear the first level intentionally? Scorpion, what's going on? King Jiyu Yi, who was at the center of the sacrificial altar, looked down. The apathetic old man stood up straight away and said respectfully, King Jiyu Yi, Lady Jiyu Mai and everyone else, all of you have always been clear about my conduct. I will do things properly, according to the rules. So, why would I show any mercy? The thing is that the little kid is not normal. The moment he made a move, my ancient god shadow was killed by him with one stroke, before it was even able to react. Killed by one stroke? This. All the 6-star ancient gods had perplexed expressions. Looks like that little kid is not as stupid as we have thought. For him to challenge the Star Moon Tower, he must something that he can rely on. Lady Jiyu Mai, who sat at the center, giggled. Since he possesses the bloodline of human beings as well, he has definitely comprehended the power of Heaven Way like human cultivators. And if I'm not wrong, his level of comprehension of the power of Heaven Way is extremely high. Ling Shan, the second level of the Star Moon Tower is guarded by your ancient god shadow. Be careful. Understood. A big, tall man nodded his head respectfully. However, after a short while, the big, tall man opened his eyes. Everyone, that little kid has already cleared the second level. Moreover, he only used one stroke, just like before. The ancient gods present became stupefied. For the third level of the Star Moon Tower after that, it was also cleared with one stroke. At the very moment, the expressions of the ancient gods at the sacrificial altar turned grave. The expressions of King Jiu Yi and Jiu Mai were extremely serious as well. The first 3 levels of the Star Moon Tower were cleared. Moreover, all of them were cleared with one stroke. This was enough to say that Jiu Jian, who was challenging the Star Moon Tower, was not normal. Could it be that a second expert, who is able to clear the 4th level of the Star Moon Tower, is about to be born again in the ancient god clan? A 6-star ancient god could not help but say, "HMH, how can it be that easy?" King Jiu Yi's expression turned grave. The Star Moon Tower gets harder as one goes higher. Moreover, there is a great threshold between the 3rd and 4th level. The ancient god shadows of the past 3 levels only possess the fighting capabilities of a stage 1 6-star ancient god. However, the ancient god shadow of the 4th level is a stage 2 6-star ancient god. Guard of the 4th level, kill this little kid at the 4th level. Understood, someone from the sacrificial altar replied immediately. Chapter 1624, the second one in History Star Moon Tower, the 4th floor. A 10-meter-high golden-armored ancient god stood in front of Jian Wushuang and held a spear in his hand. His breath was very powerful. Jian Wushuang, your opponent on the 4th layer is equivalent to the 6-star ancient god who entered the 2nd stage, which is equivalent to the primary level or medium level of an eternal real god. King of Venomous Worms said. The eternal real god at the bottom? Jian Wushuang felt confident. Jian Wushuang leaped for hundreds of miles in an instant toward the golden-armored ancient god. Hey! Jian Wushuang combined his sturdy power of the sword and his ancient god power, as well as his insight on the reincarnation doctrine. This 10-meter-tall golden-armored ancient god pointed his spear with a horribly great force that instantly smashed the void around Jian Wushuang, bang. However, the golden-armored ancient god was hit back by Jian Wushuang's force and had to step back 3 steps. I am a 2nd stage 6-star ancient god, but I am weaker than a 5-star ancient god? The golden-armored ancient god was shocked. Suddenly Jian Wushuang waved his sword again. Incredibly fast. How could it be so fast? The golden-armored ancient god was shocked. Their consecutive attacks from Jian Wushuang. The first confrontation, the ancient god was forced to step back. The second confrontation, the spear in his hand flew away. The third confrontation, Jian Wushuang stabbed the armor of the ancient god. The 4th layer had been passed. Hey, you were right, it was easy for me to pass the first 4 layers, Jian Wushuang smiled. Good job. King of Venomous Worms said. For ancient gods, it was difficult for a 5-star ancient god to challenge the 6-star ancient god, let alone the one in the 2nd stage, which was comparable to the human eternal real god level. Because of the great difficulties, the Star Moon Tower was a nightmare for the ancient gods. In a long period of time, only one ancient god had passed the first 4 layers. However, for Jian Wushuang, it was a piece of cake. After all, he could already beat an eternal real god at this level when he was passing the Burning Demon region in the 3rd round of the inverse cultivation test. Later, after hundreds of years of cultivation, he had relied on his own skills to kill a powerful real god Shiju. It was enough for him to pass the 4th layer back then. What's more, he later went to Thunderbolt Island in the Sanctuary Alliance for more than 1,500 years. In that 1,500 years, his strength had advanced by leaps and bounds, and he had already reached a new level. Now, it was too easy for him to kill an eternal real god of the bottom level, so just passing the 4th layer meant nothing to him. Outside the tower, above the altar, this guy passed the 4th layer so easily? How could it be? All the ancient gods on the altar, including Jiu Yi King and Jiu Mai, were also shocked. Countless ancient gods were all staring at the Star Moon Tower. At the beginning, everyone had just come to laugh at Jian Wushuang without expecting him to pass. But later, they had witnessed Jian Wushuang pass one layer and another very quickly. Finally, Jian Wushuang had passed the 4th layer. During that time, the whole audience was quiet. Silence. Everyone was speechless. Soon, They started to discuss excitedly again. Has this guy really passed the 4th layer? How long has it been since we last saw an ancient god survive the 4th layer? I am not sure, but I am sure that he is the second one in history that has passed the 4th layer. Many ancient gods were all excited. In the midst of shock and excitement, some people found that Jian Wushuang didn't immediately come out of the Star Moon Tower as soon as he had passed the test. Read more chapter on free web novel. He was still in the tower, why doesn't he come out? Is he going to go up to the 5th floor? The 5th floor? Impossible. Everyone was holding their breath. On the 5th layer of the tower also stood a golden-armored ancient god, but it was as tall as 20 meters. Jian Wushuang, the guy in the 5th layer, is as strong as an eternal real god of the peak level. King of Venomous Worms said. Isn't that the same as the real god Shiju in his heyday? Jian Wushuang asked. Well, almost. King of Venomous Worms nodded. Jian Wushuang smiled. Real god Shiju was close to a peak eternal true god. Jian Wushuang had once killed real god Shiju, but at that time he had to rely on the secret skills of Star Palace. The second reason was that the real god Shiju was seriously injured and only showed 70 of his power. However, after 1,500 years of cultivation in the Thunderbolt Island, Jian Wushuang was definitely capable of killing real god Shiju with his own power. On the 5th layer, the golden real god was like golden lightning, and his voice echoed in this space. You have already passed the 4th floor and have been recognized by ancient gods. You should be content and should not come here. You will die. Really? Jian Wushuang smiled. Chapter 1625. Challenge to the end. Boom. The 20-meter-tall gold-armored ancient god attacked straight away. A great amount of golden ancient god power gathered in his index finger instantly. After that, his index finger, which was filled with thick ancient god power, was pointed out abruptly. Rumble the void collapsed and an ancient, giant golden finger appeared out of thin air. For the Star Moon Tower, the guards at the higher levels would be even more powerful. Moreover, it was not just in the aspect of abilities. It also included close-quarters combat techniques and unique skills. For example, for the first 4 levels, the ancient gods guarding the level only displayed the abilities they were supposed to display, and they did not use ancient god unique skills. However, from the 5th level onward, the guards would use unique skills. As such, at that very moment, the golden ancient god used the ancient god's finger. Ancient god's 4th finger? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrow. What a coincidence. I know this move as well. As soon as the words left his mouth, a tremendous amount of ancient god power appeared from Jian Wushuang's hands and gathered at his right index finger crazily. As Jian Wushuang pointed out his finger, a similar giant finger appeared on the universe. Both giant fingers looked as if they had appeared from the past, and they possessed a frightening power, which was earth-shaking. At the next moment, both giant fingers clashed. Bam! With a loud sound, the shocking ancient god power shattered the void completely into pieces. The two ancient god powers were opposing each other madly. They were both the god's test of the ancient god's 4th finger. The only difference was that one of the fingers was unleashed by a stage 2 6-star ancient god, while the other one was unleashed by Jian Wushuang, a 5-star ancient god. Of course, although Jian Wushuang was only a 5-star ancient god, he did not possess only the ancient god power, he possessed divine power as well. As an inverse cultivator, by combining both divine power and ancient god power, the ancient god's 4th finger that he unleashed with his full power would have shocking power as well. In the end, both their attacks dissipated completely while opposing each other. How can this be? The gold-armored ancient god was astonished. Jiu Jian has awakened the royal ancient god bloodline, and he would definitely have some memories of inheritance. Thus, it would be normal for him to be able to use the ancient god's 4th finger. However, he is merely a 5-star ancient god. How can the power of his ancient god's 4th finger be the same as mine? Just as the gold-armored ancient god was surprised, a ghost-like body had already appeared in front of him and a sword light struck. Whoosh! 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 For the sword shadows, every one of them contained the power of space-time. Thus, they were extremely fast and they headed toward the gold-armored ancient god. The gold-armored ancient god acted straight away to block the attack. However, as soon as the both of them fought, the gold-armored ancient god understood immediately that he could not stop Jian Wushuang. Damn it! The sword principles of this little kid is too fast and delicate. Moreover, my ancient god shadow is under many restrictions in the Star Moon Tower. Thus, I am unable to unleash some of my unique skills and secret skills. With that, I am unable to stop him and I will probably be defeated. The gold-armored ancient god could not do anything either. At the 5th level of the Star Moon Tower, he could indeed use ancient god unique skills. He could use the ancient god finger move, but not other unique skills or the secret skills. Moreover, his power was unable to suppress Jian Wushuang completely. Therefore, it was normal for him to be unable to stop Jian Wushuang's sword principles. In no time, the gold-armored ancient god was defeated completely. 5th level. Cleared. As Jian Wushuang saw the body of the gold-armored ancient god in front of him dissipating slowly, his eyes glowed brilliantly. I have cleared the 5th level of the Star Moon Tower. In other words, after I get out now, I will be able to obtain the 4 unique skills within the ancient god palace, as well as one of the secret skills of the 3 secret skills. Jian Wushuang clenched his fists tightly. That's right, the king of venomous worms nodded his head. For you to be able to reach this stage, it's already considered not too bad. As for the 6th level, if I'm not wrong, the fighting capabilities of the guard on the 6th level are of a top stage 2 6-star ancient god, which is equivalent to that of an eternal real god standing at the peak. With your current abilities, you can try to challenge the 6th level. However, there will be a considerable amount of risk. After all, if you are unable to clear it, the only fate awaiting you is death. After hearing what had been said, Jian Wushuang muttered to himself. However, he raised his head up in the blink of an eye. My current abilities are enough to fight against a top eternal real god, and the probability of me clearing the 6th level is not low either. Since I have already cleared the 5th level, I shall continue challenging the next few levels to the best of my abilities. Jian Wushuang laughed nonchalantly. It would be great if I could clear the 6th level successfully. If there's really no chance, I still have the secret skill of Star Palace as my trump card. You're not wrong, the king of venomous worms laughed. Since that's the case, go ahead and challenge the next level. Jian Wushuang's body moved right away. Outside the Star Moon Tower, numerous ancient gods focused their attention on the Star Moon Tower. Although they were unable to see what was happening inside the Star Moon Tower, they could tell how many levels Jian Wushuang had cleared from the dim light that the Star Moon Tower was emitting. At that moment, the 5th level of the Star Moon Tower emitted a dim light. After seeing that, many ancient gods present could not help but be shocked. The 5th level has been cleared? Firstly, he is the first person in the history of the ancient god clan to clear the 5th level of the Star Moon Tower. The first person in history. Countless ancient gods on the drill ground roared madly, and all of them were extremely excited. Atop the sacrificial altar, many top 6-star ancient gods, including the 2 7-star ancient gods, became silent. However, this silence only continued for a short while. This damn little kid. A furious voice could be heard, and everyone atop the sacrificial altar looked toward the source of the voice. The face of a red-haired, big old man, who was sitting on the throne, was filled with anger at that very moment. This little kid has actually come to the 6th level that I am guarding. The 6th level. The top 6-star ancient gods and even the 2 7-star ancient gods King Jiu Yi as well Jiu Mai could not help but reveal an astonished expression at that very moment. It was still not enough, even though he had cleared the first 5 levels. At that very moment, he still wanted to clear the 6th level? This little kid, what does he treat the Star Moon Tower as? King Jiu Yi could not help but shout furiously. At the space of the 6th level in the Star Moon Tower, the ancient god shadow of the red-haired, big old man was only a 10-meter tall gold-armored ancient god, and he was standing in front of Jian Wushuang. However, he was different from the guard of the 5th level. When Jian Wushuang faced the gold-armored ancient god on the space of the 6th level, he felt an extremely great amount of pressure. As expected, the guard of the 6th level has fighting capabilities comparable to an eternal real god who stands at the top. However, it is only because of this that it will be challenging. As Jian Wushuang laughed, a tremendous amount of fighting intent rose from his body and the blood mountain sword in his hands started to shake madly. As a 5-star ancient god, you have managed to clear the first 5 levels of the Star Moon Tower and you should have unlimited possibilities in your future. However, It's a pity that you have chosen the wrong path. The ancient god shadow of the red-haired tall old man looked down at Jian Wushuang. I am different from the guards of the first 5 levels. Not only are they restricted in terms of their abilities, even their unique skills are restricted as well. However, at the 6th level, I can unleash all my unique skills to my liking. Thus, you have no chance. Chapter 1626. Unique Skills of Ancient Gods. After hearing what the elder had said, Jian Wushuang replied, "Okay. I am curious about the power of the 4 great unique skills. I will not disappoint you," the elder said, and the next moment he pointed out his index finger. With a rumbling sound, a giant, dark hand emerged with the power of smashing anything. The giant hand extended out and its index finger contained an incomparably special and powerful force. This is Ancient God's 5th finger? Jian Wushuang was surprised. There were 9 Ancient God's fingers in total, and Jian Wushuang had learned 6. The Ancient God's 5th finger was Get Through Difficulty finger. So he was surprised that he had met the Ancient God's 5th finger at the beginning. Jian Wushuang looked serious. He lifted up the Blood Mountain sword instantly and soon, in the void, 10 slashes from the bloody sword emerged. Each slash contained great power and they appeared together in an instant. Actually, Jian Wushuang didn't do his best, but the attack was already strong and suffocating. Bang! The slashes from Jian Wushuang's sword collided with the black giant finger. That produced a resounding rumble and the 6th layer was immediately surrounded by a storm of power. Jian Wushuang, who stood in his original place, shifted his figure. A magical storm abruptly swept out, and the figure of Jian Wushuang instantly turned into hundreds of phantoms. Each phantom was very different, shifting fast to the elder. Universal laws. The golden-armored ancient god transformed by the elder used his tremendous breath and generated his great ancient god power. All of a sudden, he gathered hundreds of figures, each of which had tremendous power. Go to hell! As the elder shouted, he and his hundreds of figures waved their hands at the same time. Bang! Those figures slashed hundreds of palm attacks at the same time, rushing to Jian Wushuang. What? Jian Wushuang couldn't believe it. Jian Wushuang, be careful. All the phantoms you have seen from the elder are entities. Their attacks are also real, King of Venomous Worms said. All are real attacks. Jian Wushuang was shocked. The dense golden palms came at the same time. Most of them went to the phantoms of Jian Wushuang, but others went directly to his real body, and Jian Wushuang avoided them all. But in this way, the elder could tell which one was the real body of Jian Wushuang. That is it. The elder targeted at the real body of Jian Wushuang and slashed a new round of palm attacks. Hundreds of phantoms behind him all slashed palms directly to Jian Wushuang's real body. Jian Wushuang was overwhelmed by the attacks. Boom! 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 Suddenly, there was a great roar. A roar echoed between the heaven and the earth, and a golden light burst out. Under the pressure of the palm attacks, a divine ape covered in golden armor rose. It was thousands of meters tall, its breath was much stronger, and he was holding a sword and his eyes were fierce. At the same time, bloody flames spread all over the 6th layer, making it a bloody fire sea. And Jian Wushuang became the emperor in the sea of fire. Ha! As Jian Wushuang shouted, the huge golden divine ape rose. In an instant, this golden ape appeared in front of the elder. At this time, the elder blinked his eyes and his phantoms all converged behind him. At the same time, the elder generated his power and soared once again. Then his figure quickly exploded to one as tall as the ape. He clenched his right fist and punched Jian Wushuang. Bang! In response, the golden ape transformed by Jian Wushuang held the sword in his hand and integrated his divine power and reincarnation power. Jian Wushuang waved his stunning sword, which was powerful enough to tear the sky. The sword and the palms collided with each other. At that time, Jian Wushuang stepped backward and changed into nearly 100 phantoms. The phantoms of Jian Wushuang were as flexible as fish in the water, and his real body was surrounding the elder. Jian Wushuang was looking for opportunities to attack the elder based on his insights of time and space. He exercised his swordsmanship to its full extent. At that moment, the elder seemed at a disadvantage. Suddenly, hey! The elder's power skyrocketed. Behind his shoulder, the only big head transformed into 3 more heads. In addition, there were also 6 arms that extended out. What is that? Jian Wushuang was shocked. At that moment, the golden-armored ancient god in front of him turned into 4 heads and 8 arms. 4 heads and 8 arms now. Jian Wushuang, this is one of the 4 great unique skills. If it is cultivated to the full extent, it can be turned into 9 heads and 18 arms. The skill is not only about heads and arms, it is also accompanied by a set of attacks that will greatly improve one's capacity to kill. The attacking method of 3 heads and 6 arms is different from that of the 4-headed and 8-armed one. The most terrible one is that of 9 heads and 8 arms. It is a nightmare for you, King of Venomous Worms said to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang had encountered similar skills that could add heads and arms before, but they were simply adding the number and were nothing to do with changing attack skills. But now in this skill of the ancient god clan, each added head and arm meant a leap in power. Chapter 1627, The Final Trump Card Reincarnation World. When Jian Wushuang swung his big hands, a vast amount of reincarnation power surged and changed into gray air currents. In the end, the gray currents gathered and combined into a big gray world. The gray world struck the red-haired, tall old man directly. The red-haired, tall old man had a total of 4 heads. At that very moment, his 4 pairs of eyes were releasing thick murderous aura, and even when covered by reincarnation world, his aura still did not weaken at all. At the same time, his 8 sturdy arms moved. From the 8 arms, there might be a punch, slap, sharp claw, or fingertip. Even though he had different attack moves, his 8 arms cooperated with one another beautifully. Moreover, his 4 heads also opened their big mouths at the same time. Either their big mouths gave off shocking soundwave attacks or their eyes released thunderbolts. In no time, all kinds of attack headed toward Jian Wushuang. Gosh! Jian Wushuang used his full power. He unleashed his comprehension of the reincarnation doctrine and space-time doctrine as well as his close-quarters combat abilities thoroughly. However, when he fought against the red-haired, tall old man, he was still pushed back instantly and even suppressed in just one face-off. Swoosh! Jian Wushuang's body retreated hastily. After he regained his posture, he could feel the trembling aura within his body, as well as the extreme pain in his shoulders and chest. On the blood feather reincarnation armor covering those 2 parts, there was a marking left behind by a sharp claw and a fist respectively. In just one face-off, I was hit by him twice. Moreover, I was shaken up by the soundwave attack. These close-quarters combat abilities. Jian Wushuang clicked his tongue in admiration. Frightening. 4 heads, 8 arms. The close-quarters combat abilities displayed by combining the different kinds of attack beautifully were way more fearful than the close-quarters combat abilities of any experts that Jian Wushuang had come across. Ancient gods are generally proficient in close-quarters combat. Combined with this unique skill that is specific to them, they can be considered number 1 in terms of close-quarters combat among the clans of the eternal chaotic world. This ancient god, who is currently fighting with you, is still all right as he only has 4 heads and 8 arms. However, my old master King Luozhan managed to hone this unique skill until he possessed 8 heads and 16 arms. Moreover, he was an 8-star royal ancient god, and if he were to have a fight in close quarters, he would not be afraid in the slightest, even if 2 or 3 almighties at the level of the founder of the lineage of Star were to team up against him. The King of Venomous Worms' voice could be heard. Jian Wushuang could not help but gasp in admiration. The Star Palace Master and King Luozhan, who was an 8-star ancient god, belonged to the same level. Thus, they should have similar abilities. However, by just comparing close-quarters combat abilities alone, with 8 heads 16 arms, King Luozhan could compete against 2 or even 3-star Palace Masters alone, and this was definitely not empty words. The ancient god clan had always been recognized as the number 1 in terms of close-quarters combat. Since his close-quarters combat abilities are so strong, my martial art motion and sword principles will be useless against him. Hence, I can only depend on my special moves. Jian Wushuang's eyes turned serious and divine power rose from his body madly. The divine ape, which was wearing golden armor and shrouding his body, also gave a furious roar. After that, its hands grabbed the long sword and raised it high up in the air. At the moment it raised up the long sword, an overbearing sword essence rose. Atop the void at the space of the 6th level, buzz, buzz, buzz. Crimson sword shadows appeared on the void, and there was a total of 16 of them. For the 16 crimson sword shadows, every one of them was so strong that it was suffocating, and if a normal eternal real god were to come across any one of them, he would definitely be terrified. However, at that moment, the 16 crimson sword shadows were superimposed onto one another and fused into one. Rumble, the sword shadow that was formed by the fusion of the 16 crimson sword shadow, had earth-shaking power. Myriad waves. Kill. Jian Wushuang gave a fierce shout, and the long sword in his hands was swung downward. At the same time, the new sword shadow that was formed by the 16 crimson sword shadows also struck fiercely and abruptly. At that moment, the universe was affected as well. What an impressive amount of power! When the red-haired, tall old man saw the giant crimson sword shadow, the 8 eyes on his forehead shrank. Straight away after that, his 8 arms put their palms together. 8 divine mountains. Bang! 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 Lofty golden divine mountains descended abruptly. Every golden divine mountain was about 100,000 feet tall, and they were emitting brilliant golden light. After counting, one could conclude that there was a total of 8 similar divine mountains. The 8 divine mountains appeared in front of the red-haired, tall old man and became a total of 8 obstacles. When the shocking sword shadow that Jian Wushuang had unleashed came, the sword shadow struck the 100,000-foot-tall divine mountain at the front straight away. The first 100,000-foot-tall divine mountain was destroyed instantly. The sword shadow then headed toward the second divine mountain, followed by the third divine mountain. 5 divine mountains were destroyed in one go. However, when it was the 6th divine mountain, the crimson sword shadow was hindered greatly, and it was only after some time that it barely managed to destroy the 6th divine mountain. When the remaining power struck the 7th divine mountain, it was no longer able to destroy the 7th divine mountain. In a split second, the sword shadow dissipated completely. As Jian Wushuang stood in his position and looked at the 2 remaining divine mountains, his expression was unusually serious. My strongest move, Myriad Waves, was actually stopped by him so easily? Jian Wushuang muttered. It's not considered easy. What he had just unleashed was the 8 divine mountains of the 4 unique skills, and this move is the only unique skill among the 4 unique skills that is used for defending. Although he had used it to stop your sword principles, it must have cost him quite a considerable amount of his ancient god power, the king of venomous worms said. Even though that's the case, he still managed to stop it in the end. Moreover, although I have already used up all my moves, I am still unable to do anything to him. Hence, if I were to continue fighting him and be suppressed, the person who will be killed in the end will definitely be me. Jian Wushuang frowned. There's no choice but to use my final trump card. Originally, Jian Wushuang did not plan to use his final trump card. However, it was a pity that the abilities of the guard of the 6th level had exceeded his expectations completely. Although it was merely a top stage 2 6-star ancient god, the ancient god unique skills that he had used were too powerful. Jian Wushuang could only use that move. Buzz, a marvelous power rose from Jian Wushuang's body and covered his body completely in the blink of an eye. It was the secret skill of Star Palace. Moreover, it was the 2nd volume of the secret skill of Star Palace. I only have a breath's time. Kill. Jian Wushuang exerted force on his feet fiercely, and he moved like a ghost. Are you still going to struggle, even at the end? The red-haired, tall old man glanced at Jian Wushuang, and he pointed out one of the fingers on his right hand fiercely. The void was shattered into pieces, and a giant finger which was emitting an infinite amount of dim light appeared out of thin air. It was the ancient god's 5th finger. Get through difficulty finger again. When the giant finger came, Jian Wushuang swung the Blood Mountain sword in his hands ferociously. Merciless sword essence tore the air apart, tore everything in the universe apart, and also ripped the giant finger in front of him into pieces. Chapter 1628. Level 6, Pass. What? The red-haired old man was surprised. Then, there were ancient god shadows that appeared from nowhere behind him. I have no time to mess around with you. D. Jian Wushuang's eyes dilated in shock. Then, his hands gripped Blood Mountain sword tightly. Vroom. 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 There were crimson sword shadows that appeared again and merged together flawlessly again. Hong. The sword shadow slashed down. It was still the same move, myriad waves. However, with the support of Power of Star, the power of that move increased tremendously by 100-fold. This. The red-haired old man's 8 eyes stared, and he could feel the terrifying power contained in the stroke. He could also tell that the stroke was beyond his endurance. The red-haired old man smiled bitterly, then he gave up struggling. Hong! A sword light swept across and everything shattered into pieces, including the ancient god body that belonged to the red-haired old man and also the ancient god shadows behind him. In no time, everything resumed its tranquility. Jian Wushuang stood on the spot and the power of Star in his body dispersed. Looking at the empty space before him, Jian Wushuang let out a breath of relief. Luckily, with the secret skill of Star Palace, I passed through the 6th level. As for the last, 7th level. Jian Wushuang, don't think about the 7th level now. If I'm not mistaken, the ancient god that you are going to meet on the 7th level will be a 3rd stage 6-star ancient god, also known as human chaotic real god level. Plus, the guardian on the 7th level will not only use all 4 unique skills, but the 3 secret skills as well. Forget about the fact that you can't perform the secret skill of Star Palace temporarily. Even if you could perform it again, don't think about passing it, King of Venomous Worms warned him. Jian Wushuang kept quiet. He knew that he could barely pass the 6th level and it would be impossible if he wanted to pass the 7th level. As I have passed the first 6 levels, I can already obtain the 4 unique skills and 2 of the 3 secret skills. I should feel content. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands and flew outside Star Moon Tower. Outside Star Moon Tower, it was dead silent on the huge drill ground. As for Star Moon Tower that was floating, the first level gave out intense dim light. Just as Jian Wushuang flew out from Star Moon Tower, countless gazes were fixed upon Jian Wushuang. Before that, as Jian Wushuang prepared to enter Star Moon Tower, the gazes were also fixed upon him. However, the gaze was different. Previously, the gazes were in disdain and sympathy. However, everyone's gaze then contained unprecedented shock and admiration. Passing the 6th level of Star Moon Tower, there was none among ancient god tribe. Jian Wushuang had created a miracle. He had made a legend. Jian Wushuang, can you feel the gazes? King of Venomous Worms' voice rang in his head. Jian Wushuang nodded faintly. He naturally noticed the gazes, but he never worried about them. Regardless of if these people pitied or ridiculed him, admired or respected him, he didn't care. He only cared about his results, which were the 4 unique skills and 3 secret skills. Jian Wushuang appeared before the altar and he bowed faintly at the lofty aura. He then said, Misters, I wonder if I can join Ancient God Palace now to cultivate the unique skills and secret skills of Ancient God Tribe? Hearing what Jian Wushuang had said, the 6-star ancient gods seated on the top of the altar exchanged a look and became silent. On the far top of the altar, Jiyu Jian. A deep, thick voice rang out. King Jiyu Yi was already on his feet. His expression was complicated as he fixed his gaze upon Jian Wushuang. You are a mixed bloodline of ancient gods and humans. You shouldn't receive ancient god tribes recognition originally. But now, you've passed the 6th level of Star Moon Tower. We of ancient god tribe honor power. You are powerful enough and you are recognized by me, the king. I, Jiyu Mai, recognize your existence as well. Jiyu Mai stood up as well. Both 7-star ancient gods acknowledged Jian Wushuang. The other 6-star ancient gods on the top naturally stood up one after another to show their recognition. Then, King Jiyu Yi waved, Ling Shan, bring this young man to Ancient God Palace to receive his inheritance. Yes. Ling Shan nodded and then brought Jian Wushuang to Ancient God Palace. After Jian Wushuang had left, everyone on the altar remained silent. After a while, it was still King Jiyu Yi who broke the stalemate situation as he said, Well, there's an impressive young man born in Jiyu King City. With the power of a 5-star ancient god, he passed the 6th level of Star Moon Tower. I am curious as to how this young man did it. Jiyu Mai commented. Although he is a royal ancient god, he never cultivated any unique skills or secret skills of ancient god tribe. He naturally wouldn't know how to perform those. When he was going through Star Moon Tower, his power of ancient god bloodline wouldn't be of much use. He would still have to rely on his human skills. However, Even if a top genius among humans wanted to pass the 6th level in Star Moon Tower at Universe Godrealm, it'd be impossible. Unless King Gu Yi suddenly thought of a possibility. Inverse cultivator? Gu Mai looked at him as well. The two 7-star ancient god did know some about humans. They had even wandered into human territory before. Naturally, they had heard of inverse cultivators. From their point of view, only inverse cultivators could possibly do that. In no time, the ancient gods that had gathered around the battlefield dispersed. Although they had dispersed, they were still excited. After all, they had witnessed a miracle with their own eyes that day. The name, Jiu Jian, had also spread across Jiu King City like wildfire. In no time, his name would spread to other king cities, or even the entire ancient god sanctuary. Ancient God Palace, where there were palaces. Ling Shan, a 6-star ancient god, led Jian Wushuang to an ancient gold palace. There were 3 engraved words on the gold palace. Unique Skill Hall. Jiu Jian, this is where the people from ancient god palace cultivate unique skill. The 4 unique skills of ancient god tribe are in Unique Skill Hall. They were passed down via inheritance of memory. You have 10 years' time. It depends on yourself as to how much you can inherit in these 10 years. 10 years later, no matter if you receive complete inheritance or not, you will have to leave, Ling Shan said. I understand. Thank you, Mr. Ling Shan, Jian Wushuang said. During the transfer of your inheritance, you won't have to worry that there'll be anyone who will come to disturb you. Go ahead, Ling Shan waved. Jian Wushuang didn't hesitate and immediately entered Unique Skill Hall. Chapter 1629. Inheritance. The Unique Skill Hall was dusky. At the end of Jian Wushuang's line of vision, a lofty ancient god shadow could be seen faintly. The ancient god shadow was more than 1,000,000 feet tall, and it was definitely the biggest ancient god shadow that Jian Wushuang had ever seen. Moreover, even though it was a shadow, the aura that it released was stronger than a 7-star ancient gods, like King Jiu Yi or Jiu Mai. What a large body and powerful aura. Could the owner of this ancient god shadow be the ancient god emperor from the past? Jian Wushuang exclaimed in admiration. It's him. The king of venomous worms nodded its head. However, it is rumored that the body of the ancient god emperor is a lot larger than this shadow. Moreover, as the only emperor of the ancient god clan, he is the strongest expert. The 4 unique skills and 3 secret skills in the ancient god clan now had all been created by him. Jian Wushuang, for the inheritance of the unique skills, under normal circumstances, the purer one's bloodline is, the easier it would be for the unique skills to be passed on to him. Since you are a royal ancient god, you should be able to inherit the 4 unique skills completely within 10 years' time. However, you should do your best to not waste any time. Let's begin. Understood. Jian Wushuang nodded his head and sat down with his legs crossed immediately. In no time, memories of inheritance appeared in his mind. Jian Wushuang also did his best to absorb all the memories of inheritance. Just like the ancient gods had said, with Jian Wushuang's royal ancient god bloodline, it would be very easy for him to inherit the unique skills. The 4 unique skills of the ancient god clan. From the ancient god's finger at the start, to universal laws, to 9 heads, 18 arms, and finally 8 divine mountains. The 4 unique skills were passed on smoothly. In the blink of an eye, 8 years' time passed. Ling Shan had been waiting outside the Unique Skill Hall quietly. At that very moment, the door of the Unique Skill Hall opened abruptly and Jian Wushuang walked out from it. You came out so quickly. Could it be that you have already fully inherited the 4 unique skills? Ling Shan said with surprise. Jian Wushuang chuckled. Lord Ling Shan, let's go to the place of inheritance for the secret skills. Ling Shan did not ask too much and he brought Jian Wushuang to 3 black, ancient attics immediately. Jiu Jian, the 3 attics that you are looking at now is the lineage of ancient god's place of inheritance for the 3 secret skills. After clearing the 6th level of the Star Moon Tower, you can inherit the Thunder Attracting skill and Star Destruction skill. However, you will not be able to inherit the Moon Picking skill, which is the final secret skill, Ling Shan said. Thunder Attracting skill and Star Destruction skill? Jian Wushuang's eyes squinted. He had heard of the names of the 3 secret skills from the king of venomous worms. However, he had never experienced how strong the 3 secret skills were. However, Looking at it at that very moment, the moon-picking skill was probably the strongest among the 3 secret skills. Jian Wushuang, it's already considered not too bad for you to be able to inherit 2 secret skills. As for the moon-picking skill, it is indeed the most frightening secret skill of the ancient god clan, and it is known to be a very remarkable ability. Although you are unable to get it now, if there is an opportunity in the future, you can still think of a way to clear the 7th level of the Star Moon Tower. At that time, you will be able to obtain the right to inherit the moon-picking skill, the King of Venomous Worms said. Yes, Jian Wushuang nodded his head. It would be great if he could obtain the moon-picking skill in the future. However, if he were unable to obtain it, he would also not be too concerned. The 2 attics on the left are the places to inherit the thunder-attracting skill and the star-destruction skill respectively. Similar to the unique skill hall, you can stay in every attic for 10 years. As for how many memories of inheritance you are able to obtain within 10 years, it is entirely up to you. Go ahead, Ling Shan waved his hands and said. Jian Wushuang entered the first attic straight away. This attic was the place used to pass on the thunder-attracting skill. Jian Wushuang also started to inherit the thunder-attracting skill quickly. During the process, Jian Wushuang slowly understood the thunder-attracting skill and the star-destruction skill. The thunder-attracting skill was used to attract the universal sacred thunder to kill one's opponent forcefully. It should be known that the attracted universal sacred thunder could be either of the same variety as in the God's test, or the life-destroying thunder. Moreover, the stronger one's abilities became, the more frightening the power of the attracted divine thunder would be. If one's abilities were to reach the level of King Luo Zhan's, he would be able to attract hundreds upon hundreds of life-destroying thunders with earth-shaking power when he unleashed the secret skill with his full power. This would definitely be an extremely frightening killing move. As for the star-destruction skill, it was a secret skill which could allow one's abilities to skyrocket for a short period of time. However, this secret skill was a double-edged sword. Although it would make one powerful, there would be side effects to his body. When used, it could break apart the ancient god star that was forming in the space between one's eyebrows forcefully so that it would flow into the attacks of the user. This secret skill would be best suited for a difficult battle. If used properly, the tides would be turned during a bad situation. Of course, after the battle, the user's abilities would be affected and it would require some time for it to recover. In all, for the 2 secret skills, every one of them was unusually powerful and they were extremely useful to ancient gods. 2 attics and 2 secret skills. If a normal ancient god were to inherit the 2 secret skills for 20 years, they might still be unable to inherit them completely. However, adding the time that Jian Wushuang had spent in both attics together, he only spent a total of 18 years to obtain the complete memories of inheritance. At that very moment, he had obtained both the 4 unique skills and 2 secret skills. However, he had merely obtained them. If he wanted to use and also display their full power, he would need a lot of actual combat experience with them. Lord Ling Shan Jian Wushuang appeared in front of Ling Shan. For the next period of time, it's all right for me to stay in the ancient god palace, right? Of course. Ling Shan nodded his head. All right. Jian Wushuang chuckled. The ancient god palace had many powerful ancient gods and did not lack 6-star ancient gods either. What Jian Wushuang lacked the most at that very moment was actual combat experience. Hence, the 6-star ancient gods in the ancient god palace were best suited to be his opponents. Moreover, Jian Wushuang had relied on clearing the 6th level of the Star Moon Tower to enter the ancient god palace. Thus, his name had already spread through the whole of Jiyu King City, as well as the entire ancient god sanctuary a long time ago. With that, many ancient gods within the ancient god palace yearned to have a battle with him. As such, Jian Wushuang did not need to challenge someone to a battle. By just walking around randomly in the ancient god palace, he would come across many ancient gods who were looking to battle him. This was what Jian Wushuang hoped for. For the next period of time, he would stay within the ancient god palace and battle against the ancient gods who came to challenge him. The abilities of the ancient gods who came to challenge him were both weak and strong. The strongest was a stage 2 top 6-star ancient god, while the weakest was a stage 1 ancient god. At the start, when Jian Wushuang fought them, he did his very best to not use techniques of human beings. He would not use the comprehension of the reincarnation doctrine and the space-time doctrine. Instead, He would rely purely on his close-quarters combat skills and techniques of ancient gods to fight with them. During the intense battles, he continued to train and familiarize himself with using the ancient god clan's 4 unique skills and 2 secret skills. While he was undergoing such training, time continued to pass by. Chapter 1630. King Jiyu Tong. In the blink of an eye, Jian Wushuang had stayed in Ancient God Palace for 120 years. In a lofty hall in Ancient God Palace, Ling Shan stood politely before King Jiyu Yi. King Jiyu Yi, I have just received news that Jiyu Jian defeated Jiyu Jinyu, Ling Shan reported. Jiyu Jinyu isn't too strong among second-stage 6-star ancient gods. He could be considered intermediate. Jiyu Jian passed the 6th level of Star Moon Tower. Isn't it normal that he defeated Jiyu Jinyu? King Jiyu Yi didn't care. If Jiyu Jian were to defeat Jiyu Jinyu when he went all out, it naturally wouldn't be much. But most importantly, he didn't use any human attack skills at all. He used the 4 ancient god unique skills to defeat Jiyu Jinyu, Ling Shan explained. Oh. King Jiyu Yi then looked shocked. He never used any human attack skills? Are you sure about this? Yes, Ling Shan nodded. I am certain that he never once used his comprehension of the power of Heaven Wei, nor did he use any sword principles. At most, he used his divine power. In other words, his control of the 4 unique skills has surpassed Jiyu Jinyu. King Jiyu Yi looked surprised. The Jiyu Jinyu that they were talking about was a 6-star ancient god who stayed in Ancient God Palace for many years. The purity of his bloodline was high, but he was only a silver-armored ancient god. His control of the 4 ancient god unique skills was extremely high. However, he was defeated by Jian Wushuang. Although I am reluctant to admit this, I have to say that Jiyu Jian is a really terrifying genius. No matter if it's a human or as an ancient god, he is 1 in a million. His improvement speed is terrifyingly fast. If this continues, I cannot imagine to what stage he will improve, Ling Shan said. King Jiyu Yi smiled faintly. He couldn't predict Jian Wushuang's potential either. Oh yeah, the thing that I assigned you to look into. Did you find anything? King Jiyu Yi asked. Yeah, Ling Shan nodded. I investigated twice and I got the same results. Jiyu Jian isn't from King Jiyu Tong bloodline. There isn't such an impressive 5-star ancient god from King Jiyu Tong's bloodline. I knew it. King Jiyu Yi looked calm. He didn't seem to be surprised at the results. He carries a human bloodline. If I'm not mistaken, he should have been living in the human territory previously. He only came to Ancient God Sanctuary to partake in the Ancient God Palace examination. Hence, he registered using King Jiyu Tong's name. Is that so? Should we? Ling Shan had yet to finish his sentence. King Jiyu Yi waved. Don't need to do anything. Regardless of the young man's origin, he does have an ancient god bloodline, that's the truth. Also, he passed the 6th level of Star Moon Tower, that's the truth as well. We only need to follow the rules that our ancestors left behind. I understand. Ling Shan nodded and then he left. Ancient God Tribe was different from humans. Ancient God Tribe purely relied on power and strength. As for fighting and scheming against one another went, it hardly happened. Jiyu King City, there were people shuttling to and fro on the street. That very moment, there was a troop made up of over 10 people marching into Jiyu King City. The troop was made up of ancient gods, but they were all weak. They were either 3 or 4-star ancient gods. As for 5-star ancient gods, there were only 2 of them. We are in King City now, you can walk around. Remember, don't get into any fights. Go ahead, a brawny elder exhorted. Then, the troop walked in all directions in excitement. The brawny elder and the other 5-star ancient god came to a shop. They had come to King City to get some necessities for their tribe after all. As they were purchasing some items, there were 3 figures gathered at a corner of the shop as they casually chatted. Among the 3, one of them was a bald, brawny man. As for the other 2, both of their figures and appearances were ridiculously alike. They should be twins. You brothers just arrived in Jiyu King City? The bald, brawny man asked. His voice was loud as though he was afraid that anyone could hear him. Yeah, the 2 of us have been staying in the tribe. We came to Jiyu King City this time with the intention to enter Ancient God Palace. one of the twin brothers said. TSK, TSK. It's a pity that you came too late. If you were to arrive earlier, you might have been in time to witness the miracle of ancient god bloodline, the bald brawny man said. Miracle? What miracle? Tell me. The brothers were curious. What happened was that there was a mix of human and ancient god bloodline. He was like you, wanted to join ancient god palace, and he passed through the pre-examination of ancient god palace, but because he was of mixed blood, he couldn't enter ancient god palace. Then, the Mr. made a shocking decision, which was to challenge Star Moon Tower. Star Moon Tower? The legendary place of definite death. This person has guts. The brothers were surprised. Humph, what place of definite death? To us, it might be a place of definite death, but to the Mr., he survived before everyone in Star Moon Tower. Not only did he pass the first 4 levels of Star Moon Tower, he also passed the 5th and 6th levels. He is only 1 step away from the final 7th level. The bald, brawny man said with a loud and bright voice. What? The brothers were shocked. The brawny elder and the 5-star ancient god, who were picking the items that they wanted to purchase, were shocked too. He passed the 6th level of Star Moon Tower? There was astonishment in their eyes. This is true. Many people saw it too. Hence, it is said to be a miracle, the bald brawny mad complimented. What's the Mr.'s name? Which king is he under? One of the brothers asked closely. I know his name, Jiu Jian. As for his king, it seems to be King Jiu Tong. The bald brawny man said. The moment he said that, the brothers didn't react differently. However, the brawny elder and the 5-star ancient god next to him was stunned. Elder Yi, did you hear that? Did they say King Jiu Tong? That's our king. The 5-star ancient god said in excitement. I heard that. Don't be so excited just yet. The brawny elder looked solemn. He lowered his voice as he said, our king is in trouble and he isn't like how he was before. Among the people in our tribe, although they were a few gifted young men, it is impossible for them to pass the 6th level in Star Moon Tower. Jiu Jian. I have never heard of the name. He might not be with us. Not with us? The 5-star ancient god creased his eyebrows. We can't determine it now. Don't rush. We have time, let's try to ask around. The brawny elder squinted his eyes.